The gunshot echoed through the marble corridor before anyone could scream. Amara watched the crimson bloom spread across her white blouse, her knees buckling as the masked man's weapon tracked toward the small boy behind her. 8-year-old Ethan stood frozen, his eyes wide with terror, and in that suspended moment before she hit the ground, Amara's only thought was, "I promised him I wouldn't leave." 20 seconds earlier, she'd been holding his hand, singing softly to calm his panic as the security alarms shrieked through the estate. Now everything was chaos and blood, and the sound of Ethan screaming her name. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. This story doesn't really start with bullets and blood. It starts 3 months earlier, with a different kind of breaking point. 12 weeks before that moment on the corridor floor, Amara Cole had been sitting in a Chicago coffee shop, staring at her laptop screen with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The email glowed accusingly. "Final notice, payment required." Below it sat 17 more messages, each one another nail in the coffin of the life she'd spent a decade building. She was 32 years old, a music therapist with impeccable credentials, and she was drowning. The hospital layoffs had gutted her department 6 months ago. The unemployment checks had run out. Her savings account showed a balance that made her stomach twist. And her landlord had made it crystal clear she had 2 weeks to come up with 3 months' rent, or her belongings would be on the sidewalk. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost declined, but something made her answer. "Amara Cole?" The voice was crisp, professional, female. "Speaking. My name is Dr. Grace Park. I'm calling from the Horizon Institute in Seoul, South Korea. We received your application materials from Dr. Michelle Santos." Amara's breath caught. Michelle, her former supervisor, who'd moved to Seoul 2 years ago. They'd had drinks 3 weeks ago when Michelle visited Chicago, and Amara had made the mistake of admitting how desperate things had become. "I didn't submit an application," Amara said carefully. "Dr. Santos submitted it on your behalf. She speaks very highly of your work with nonverbal children." A pause. "We'd like to offer you the position of senior music therapist. The compensation package includes housing, relocation expenses, and a salary that I think you'll find quite competitive." Dr. Park named a figure that made Amara's vision blur. "When would you need an answer?" "We'd like you to start in 2 weeks." 2 weeks. 14 days to pack up her entire life and move halfway across the world to a country where she didn't speak the language, didn't know the culture, didn't know anyone except Michelle. "Can I think about it?" "Of course. But Amara?" Dr. Park's voice softened slightly. "Michelle showed me your dissertation on rhythm therapy and trauma recovery. You're exactly what we need. Seoul could be exactly what you need too." That night, Amara walked through her tiny apartment, cataloging what remained of her life. A futon that sagged in the middle, a keyboard she'd bought at a pawn shop, boxes of therapy materials she'd saved from the hospital, photographs of children she'd worked with, their faces bright with breakthrough moments. This was all she had, and it wasn't enough to keep her here. She emailed Dr. Park at midnight. "I accept." The flight to Seoul was turbulence and anxiety. Amara spent 14 hours convincing herself she'd made a terrible mistake, that she was running away rather than moving forward, that she'd arrive in Korea and realize she didn't belong there either. But when she stepped into the humid Seoul night and saw Michelle waiting at arrivals with a genuine smile, something in her chest loosened slightly. "You came," Michelle said, pulling her into a hug. "I came. I might be insane." "Probably, but you'll fit right in." Michelle grabbed one of Amara's suitcases. "Come on, I want to show you your new home before you meet the team." The apartment the Institute provided was small, but stunning. All clean lines and modern fixtures with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering cityscape. Amara pressed her forehead against the glass, feeling the weight of the last 6 months start to crack. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "You're beautiful," Michelle corrected. "And you're going to do amazing work here. The kids need someone like you." Someone desperate and slightly unhinged? Someone who understands that being broken doesn't mean being worthless. The next morning, Amara met Dr. Park in person. The woman was sharp-eyed and elegant, 60 years old with silver streaking through her black hair and a presence that commanded immediate respect. "Welcome to Horizon Institute," Dr. Park said, gesturing for Amara to sit in her office. "I'll be direct with you. Our program serves children from extremely wealthy families. Some of Seoul's most powerful people send their children here because we're discreet and effective." "Understood. Which means you'll encounter situations that require tact." Dr. Park slid a folder across the desk. "These are your initial cases. 6 children, various presentations, autism spectrum, selective mutism, complex trauma." Amara opened the folder, her heart doing what it always did when she saw those small faces staring back at her from intake photos, each one a universe of pain and possibility. "I'll give them my best," she said. "I know you will." Dr. Park hesitated. "There's one more thing. The Institute's annual charity gala is this Friday evening. Attendance is mandatory for senior staff." "I don't really do fancy events." "You do now. The Institute will provide appropriate attire." Dr. Park's expression turned knowing. "These gatherings are where our funding comes from. The city's elite use them to demonstrate their philanthropy. Just smile, be gracious, and stay away from anyone who looks like they could have you disappeared." Amara laughed nervously. "That's a joke, right?" Dr. Park didn't smile. "Welcome to Seoul." Friday night arrived faster than Amara wanted. She stood in her apartment, barely recognizing the woman in the mirror. The Institute had sent over a midnight blue dress that hugged her curves and made her brown skin glow. Her hair was swept up in an elegant twist. Diamond earrings borrowed from Michelle caught the light. She looked like someone who belonged at a charity gala. She felt like an imposter. "You've got this," she whispered to her reflection. "Just a few hours. Smile. Don't embarrass yourself. Go home." The car service deposited her at the Seoul Plaza Hotel. The ballroom was breathtaking, all gold and crystal and impossibly beautiful people. An orchestra played Mozart in the corner. Champagne flowed like water. Women in designer gowns air-kissed while men in custom suits discussed business deals worth millions. Amara found a spot near the grand staircase and tried to blend into the wallpaper. That's when she noticed the child. He was sitting alone at a table on the far side of the ballroom, maybe 8 years old. Dark hair fell across his forehead. His small hands were clamped over his ears, his body rocking in a rhythm she recognized instantly from years of training. Sensory overload. The orchestra, the crowd noise, the overwhelming stimulation, it was all too much for his nervous system to process. Amara watched as guests swept past his table without a glance, watched as a waiter nearly knocked into him while delivering drinks, watched as his rocking intensified, his small frame curling tighter into itself. Her therapist instincts screamed at her to intervene. But this wasn't her clinic. This was a high society event where she was nobody, and that child clearly belonged to someone important. Then she saw the man watching the boy. He stood across the ballroom, surrounded by people who seemed desperate for his attention. Tall, maybe 6'3", with shoulders that filled out his black tuxedo perfectly. His face could have been carved from ice. Sharp cheekbones, straight nose, full lips, pressed into a hard line. His dark hair was styled back from a face that revealed absolutely nothing. But his eyes kept returning to the child with an expression that looked like someone watching something precious slip through their fingers. The man said something to the people around him and started moving toward the boy's table. His path was immediately intercepted by an older gentleman who gripped his arm, engaging him in what looked like an intense conversation. The man's jaw tightened. His attention split between the conversation and the child, who was now rocking so hard his chair scraped against the marble floor. Amara made a decision. She moved through the crowd, aware of eyes tracking her progress, aware that she was probably breaking some unspoken social rule. She didn't care. A child was suffering, and she knew how to help. She approached the table slowly, making herself visible in his peripheral vision before getting too close. Then she knelt, bringing herself to his eye level without crowding his space. "Hi there," she said softly, her voice barely audible under the orchestra. "The music is really loud tonight, isn't it?" The boy didn't look at her. His gaze remained fixed on the tablecloth pattern, his fingers tracing invisible shapes. "I don't like loud music either," she continued, keeping her tone even and gentle. "Sometimes it makes my head feel buzzy. Does it make your head feel buzzy too?" A slight pause in his rocking. Barely noticeable, but she caught it. "I'm Amara. I work with kids who feel things really strongly. Would it be okay if I sat here with you? You don't have to talk to me. We can just sit quietly together." She extended her hand, palm up, resting it on her knee where he could see it without pressure. An offer, not a demand. 30 seconds passed. A minute. The orchestra swelled into a crescendo that made the boy flinch. Then, impossibly, his small fingers reached out and touched her palm. The contact lasted maybe 3 seconds before he pulled back. But it was contact. Voluntary. Conscious. "Thank you," Amara whispered. "That was very brave. Would you like to try standing up? Sometimes moving helps when everything feels like too much." Another long pause, then the slightest nod. She rose slowly, predictably, keeping her movements smooth. The boy stood too, his hand finding hers again. This time he didn't let go. "Can I show you something?" she asked. "Just small movements. We can sway a little bit, like trees in the wind. Would that be okay?" His grip tightened on her fingers. She took that as permission. Amara began to move, gentle and rhythmic, a waltz without steps. Just the simple comfort of motion, of being seen, of connecting through something more primal than words. And he moved with her. His rigid posture softened degree by degree. His rocking transformed into something that matched her rhythm, synced with her gentle swaying. His breathing slowed. Amara lost track of time. The ballroom faded away until there was just this moment, this child, this fragile bridge they were building together through movement and trust. When she finally looked up, she found herself staring into obsidian eyes that burned with an intensity that stole her breath. The man stood 3 feet away, watching them like Amara had just performed a miracle. Up close, he was even more devastating. The scar through his left eyebrow, the sharp angles of his face, the barely controlled emotion flickering behind his careful mask. "Who are you?" His voice was low, accented, dangerous. "Amara Cole. I'm a therapist with the Horizon Institute." The new music therapist. It wasn't a question. "I approved your hiring file." Her spine straightened. "You approved my what?" "The Horizon Institute operates on my family's funding. I review all senior staff appointments." His gaze dropped to where her hand still held his son's. "My son doesn't touch strangers. I didn't force him. No one has been able to touch him in 3 years. Not therapists, not doctors, not family." Something cracked in his controlled expression. "And yet he's dancing with you." The boy suddenly pulled away from Amara, retreating behind the man's legs. He didn't speak, but his small hands gripped the expensive fabric of his father's pants. The man's hand came down to rest on the boy's head, infinitely gentle, despite the hard angles of his body. "His name is Ethan," the man said quietly, "and I need to understand what you just did." Before Amara could respond, a woman in an expensive suit appeared at the man's elbow, whispering urgently. His expression darkened. "I have to handle something," he said to Amara. His eyes held hers with unexpected intensity. "But we're not finished. Someone will contact you." He swept away, the crowd parting before him like water. Ethan went with him, but the boy looked back at Amara once before disappearing into the throng. Amara stood there, her heart hammering, her hands shaking with adrenaline. Michelle materialized beside her, gripping her arm. "Please tell me you didn't just interact with Ethan Zhang." The little boy? He was having a sensory crisis. "Oh my God!" Michelle's face had gone pale. "Amara, do you have any idea whose child that is?" "His father approved my hiring file, apparently." His father is Dominic Zhang. Zhang Shipping, Zhang Industries, Zhang Hotels. Michelle lowered her voice. Also Zhang Syndicate, though no one says that part out loud. He's one of the most powerful men in Seoul, probably all of Asia. Amara's stomach dropped. Syndicate as in the kind of man who has people disappeared when they inconvenience him, as in Seoul's Shadow Emperor. Michelle pulled her toward the exit. Come on, we're leaving before you accidentally start a war. But Amara couldn't stop looking back at the spot where Ethan had stood. That small, scared boy who'd reached for her hand, who'd trusted her enough to move with her, even for just a few minutes. I helped him, she said quietly. I helped him, and I'd do it again. I know you would. Michelle sighed. That's what worries me. The message came the next morning. A text from an unknown number. Car will arrive at your building at 2 p.m. Mr. Zhang requests a meeting to discuss his son. Attendance is not optional. Amara stared at the screen for a full minute before texting back. I'll be ready. She had no idea what she was walking into, no idea that everything in her carefully reconstructed life was about to explode into something beautiful and terrifying and completely beyond her control. The car arrived precisely at 2, a black Mercedes with tinted windows and a driver who said absolutely nothing during the 40-minute drive through Seoul's winding streets. They pulled up to a compound that made Amara's breath catch. Stone walls topped with sophisticated security systems, gates that whispered open to reveal manicured grounds that stretched for acres. The main house was modern architecture blended with traditional Korean design elements, all clean lines and natural materials that probably cost more than she'd earn in a lifetime. A woman in a crisp suit met her at the entrance. Miss Cole, Mr. Zhang is expecting you. Please follow me. They walked through hallways that felt more like a museum than a home. Original artwork on the walls, sculptures that belonged in galleries, everything perfectly arranged, perfectly controlled, perfectly cold. The woman led her to a room flooded with natural light. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a Zen garden, and in the center of the room, Ethan sat at a small table, his hands pressed over his ears even though the space was silent. Dominic Zhang stood near the window, his back to the door. He turned when Amara entered. In daylight, without the ballroom's dramatic lighting, he was somehow more intimidating. The sharp suit from the night before had been replaced by a black button-down and dark slacks. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with scars she hadn't noticed before. Miss Cole. He didn't offer his hand. Thank you for coming. You made it sound like I didn't have a choice. His lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. Would you have come if I'd asked? Yes, for Ethan. Something flickered in his dark eyes. Not for me? I don't know you. Fair enough. He gestured to the boy. My son has been asking for you. In his way. Amara's heart clenched. What's his way? He keeps drawing pictures of a woman with dark skin and kind eyes. He brought them to me this morning and became agitated when I couldn't produce you. Dominic's jaw tightened. I've never seen him request a specific person before. Amara approached Ethan slowly, the same way she had at the gala. She knelt a few feet away, giving him space. Hi, Ethan. Remember me? We danced at the party. The boy's hands lowered slightly from his ears. His eyes, so like his father's, darted toward her face before skittering away. I brought something for you, Amara said softly. She pulled a small hand drum from her bag. Would you like to hear what it sounds like? She tapped a gentle rhythm. Nothing demanding. Just a heartbeat, steady and predictable. Tap, 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 tap. Ethan's rocking slowed. His focus shifted from the table to the drum. Amara set it on the floor between them. You can try if you want, no pressure. 30 seconds. A minute. Then Ethan's small hand reached out and touched the drum. His fingers explored the surface before he pulled back. Good, Amara said. That was really good. Would you like to try hitting it? This time Ethan picked up the drum. His small hand struck the surface once, twice. The rhythm was irregular but intentional. Behind her, she heard Dominic's sharp intake of breath. For the next 20 minutes, Amara worked with Ethan, building patterns, establishing trust through rhythm and movement. He never spoke, never made eye contact, but he responded to her in ways that made her chest ache. When the session ended, Ethan retreated to his corner, but this time he didn't cover his ears. He watched Amara with something that might have been curiosity or might have been hope. Dominic followed her out of the room. In the hallway, away from Ethan, his controlled mask cracked slightly. "What did you do?" "I met him where he is." 30 specialists have tried to meet him where he is. His voice was rough. 30 specialists failed. "Maybe they were trying to bring him to where they wanted him to be," Amara said carefully, "instead of accepting where he already is." Dominic stared at her like she'd just revealed a secret of the universe. "Can you help him?" "I think so. But it will take time, and it needs to happen on his terms, not ours." "Name your price." "I don't want your money." "Everyone wants my money." "I'm not everyone." Amara met his gaze steadily. "I want access to work with Ethan 3 times a week. I want autonomy to design my approach without interference, and I want a promise that you'll let this happen slowly." "Done? Just like that?" "Just like that." Dominic moved closer, his presence overwhelming in the narrow hallway. "Do you have any idea what I would give to help my son?" "No." "Everything." His voice dropped to something raw and desperate. "I would burn this entire city down if it meant Ethan could have a normal life." The intensity in his eyes made Amara's breath catch. This wasn't just a powerful man negotiating a transaction. This was a father on his knees, willing to do anything for his child. "Then we'll help him together," she said quietly. "But Mr. Zhang, I need you to understand something. Ethan doesn't need a normal life. He needs a life that works for him. There's a difference." For a long moment, Dominic said nothing. Then, "Call me Dominic. If you're going to change my son's life, we should probably be on a first-name basis." Amara left the compound 2 hours later with a contract that made her head spin. Unlimited resources, full autonomy, a salary increase that would erase her debts and then some. But the thing that stayed with her wasn't the money. It was the look in Dominic's eyes when he watched Ethan respond to her, that mixture of hope and grief and something else she couldn't quite name. It was the look of a man who'd been holding his breath for 3 years, finally remembering how to exhale. Batch 2. The first week of sessions went better than Amara dared hope. Ethan met her at the door each time, his small body less rigid with each visit. He still didn't speak, still avoided eye contact, but his responses to rhythm were extraordinary. On Wednesday, he picked up a xylophone mallet and played a perfect C major scale without any prompting. On Friday, he matched a complex rhythm pattern she'd only demonstrated once. "He's brilliant," she told Dominic after the Friday session. "His auditory processing is exceptional." "He remembers everything he hears." Dominic stood in the doorway of his study, watching her with that intense focus that made her skin warm. Music, conversations, sounds from years ago, it's all stored in there. That's a gift. It's also a curse. He remembers every sound from the night his mother died. His jaw tightened. The machines, the alarms, people shouting. He was in the room when it happened. Amara's heart clenched. He was there? Complications during delivery. I was out of the country closing a deal. The words came out flat, emotionless, but she could hear the self-hatred beneath them. By the time I got to the hospital, Caroline was gone and Ethan was screaming in a nursery bassinet. They said he cried for 6 hours straight before I arrived. "Dominic, don't." He held up a hand. "Don't tell me it wasn't my fault. I know the statistics. I understand that childbirth complications happen, but I also know that my son's first experience of this world was trauma and abandonment, and I can't undo that." Amara wanted to close the distance between them, to offer comfort, but something in his posture warned her to stay back. "I should go," she said quietly. "Same time Monday?" "Amara." Her name in his voice did something to her spine. "Would you have dinner with me? To discuss Ethan's progress?" "Is that all we'd be discussing?" His dark eyes held hers. No. She should have said no, should have maintained professional boundaries, protected herself from whatever this was building between them. But when she opened her mouth, different words came out. Yes. Okay. Yes. The restaurant was a private room in a building Dominic owned, elegant and intimate with a view of the Han River. They sat across from each other, and for the first hour they did talk about Ethan. His progress, his challenges, the therapeutic goals Amara was developing. But somewhere between the third course and dessert, the conversation shifted. "Why music therapy?" Dominic asked. "Because music saved me." The words came out before she could stop them. "I was a selective mute as a child, didn't speak for almost 3 years after my mother died." His expression softened. "How old were you?" 9. She had cancer. I watched her fade for months, and after she died, my voice just stopped working." Amara traced the rim of her wine glass. "I cycled through 7 foster homes before I landed with Ms. Rosa, a retired music teacher. She never forced me to talk. She just played piano and invited me to join her." "What happened?" 6 months of us sitting at that piano together, she playing, me listening. Then one day, I hummed along. A week later, I was singing. A month after that, words came back." She smiled at the memory. "Ms. Rosa taught me that sometimes the path to language isn't through pushing. It's through finding alternative ways to connect first." "Is she still in your life?" "She died when I was 17. Left me her piano in her will." Amara's throat tightened. "I sold it to pay for college. I regret that every day." Dominic was quiet for a long moment. "I'll find you another one." "You can't just buy me a piano." "I can buy you 1,000 pianos if it erases that regret from your voice." The intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "Why do you care?" "Because you're helping my son. Because you understand what it's like to be locked inside yourself, desperate to connect but unable to find the way out." He leaned forward. "And because when I look at you, I forget that I'm supposed to be untouchable." "Dominic, I know this is inappropriate. I know you work for me, that there's a power imbalance, that I should maintain distance." His hands clenched on the table. "But I've spent 3 years watching my son retreat further into himself. 3 years being unable to reach him. 3 years feeling like the worst failure of a father. And then you walked into that ballroom and did what I couldn't do. You saw him. You see him too." "No. I see my failures reflected in his face. I see Caroline's death and my absence and every wrong choice I've made." His voice cracked. "You see Ethan, just Ethan. Not the damaged heir, not the burden, not the tragedy. You see a boy who has things to say and needs help finding his voice." Amara reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. The contact sent electricity through her. "You're not a failure," she said firmly. "You're a father who loves his son enough to keep trying. That's not failure, Dominic, that's courage." His fingers turned, lacing with hers. "Stay tonight." Her pulse hammered. "That's not a good idea." "I know. This could complicate everything with Ethan." "I know that too." His thumb traced circles on her wrist. "But I'm asking anyway, because I can't stop thinking about you. Because you've been living in my house for a week, and every time I hear your laugh echoing through the halls, I forget why I built walls in the first place." She should pull her hand away, should leave this restaurant and maintain boundaries and protect her heart from whatever this was. Instead, she said, "Okay." They barely made it back to the compound before Dominic's control shattered. He pulled her into his study, his mouth finding hers with desperate hunger. Amara's back hit the wall, and she forgot every reason this was dangerous. His hands mapped her curves like he was memorizing them. Her fingers traced the scars on his forearms, each one a story she wanted to know. They moved together with the same rhythm she'd used with Ethan, that primal connection that transcended words. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dominic pressed his forehead to hers. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. "Tell me this is a mistake." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because I feel it too. This thing between us, I've felt it since the gala." He pulled back, his dark eyes searching hers. "I don't do relationships. I don't do vulnerability. My world is dangerous, and people I care about get hurt. Then we'll be careful." "Amara?" His jaw worked. "If you stay, if we do this, there's no going back. My world doesn't allow for casual. Once you're mine completely." The possessiveness in his voice should have scared her. Instead, it sent heat pooling low in her belly. "Then make me yours," she said. That night changed everything. They fell into each other like people starving, desperate for connection they'd both denied themselves for too long. Dominic touched her like she was precious. Amara learned the landscape of his scars, both the visible ones and the ones he carried deeper. Afterward, lying in his bed with moonlight streaming through the windows, he told her things he'd never told anyone. About inheriting his father's empire at 25, about the violence required to consolidate power, about the men he'd killed, and the choices that haunted him. "Does it bother you?" he asked. "What I am?" "You're Ethan's father," she said simply. "You're someone trying to do better. That's what I see. You make me want to be better." His arms tightened around her. "You make me want to build something clean that Ethan can inherit without shame." "Then do it. It's not that simple. Nothing worth doing ever is." They fell asleep tangled together, and for the first time in years, neither of them had nightmares. But peace never lasted in Dominic's world. The threat came 3 days later. Amara was leaving a session with Ethan when a black sedan cut off her car. 2 men in suits approached, their faces cold. "Miss Cole, someone needs to speak with you." Her driver immediately hit a button on his phone. "Don't touch her. Mr. Jang will—" One of the men pulled a gun. "Mr. Jang will do what we tell him." Everything happened fast. Cloth pressed against Amara's face, chemical sweetness flooding her lungs, the world tilting sideways as consciousness fled. She woke in a warehouse, her head pounding, her wrists zip-tied behind her back. A man sat across from her, 50s, expensive suit, cold smile. "Miss Cole, I apologize for the dramatics. I'm Victor Chen." "What do you want?" "Leverage." He leaned forward. "Dominic Zhang has been a thorn in my operations for years. But he's always been untouchable because he has no weaknesses. No family, no lovers, nothing I could use against him. Until you." Amara's blood ran cold. "I'm nobody to him." "Really? Then why has he assigned a security detail to shadow you everywhere? Why does he review footage of every session with his son? Why did my informants report that you spent last night in his bed?" Victor's smile widened. "You're his weakness, Miss Cole, and I intend to exploit it. He won't negotiate with you." "Oh, I think he will, because men like Dominic Zhang, men who've built empires on violence and fear, they're the most dangerous when they finally find something worth protecting." He stood. "Enjoy your accommodations. We'll be in touch with your lover soon." The guards left her alone in the warehouse. Amara tested her restraints immediately. The zip ties were tight, professional. She wasn't getting out of them without help. Think. She forced her panic down, made herself assess. She was in an industrial area based on the sounds filtering through the walls, multiple guards based on the footsteps she'd heard. Victor was too confident, which meant he believed Dominic would come, and Dominic would come. That certainty settled in her chest like a stone. He would come, and people would die, and it would be her fault, unless she found a way out first. Hours passed. The guards changed shift twice. Amara memorized their patterns, their movements, looking for any opening. Then the gunfire started. It exploded through the warehouse like thunder. Shouts, screams, the distinctive crack of automatic weapons. Amara pressed herself against the wall, her heart hammering as the violence rolled closer. The door to her room exploded inward. Dominic stood in the frame, backlit by emergency lighting, his white shirt splattered with blood. His eyes were wild, feral, searching until they found her. "Amara!" Her name was a prayer and a curse. He crossed the space in 2 strides, cutting her restraints with a knife that appeared from nowhere. His hands ran over her, checking for injuries with shaking fingers. "Did they hurt you? Did anyone touch you?" I'm okay. He pulled her against his chest so hard she could barely breathe. His whole body trembled. "I thought I lost you. When Chen called and told me he had you, I thought, you found me." She clutched his shirt, breathing him in. Gunpowder and expensive cologne and something darker. "You found me. Always." He pulled back, framing her face with blood-stained hands. "Do you understand? I will always find you. Always." More gunfire echoed from deeper in the warehouse. Dominic moved her behind him, his body a shield. "We need to move. My men are securing the exits, but Chen had more firepower than expected." They ran through corridors that had become a war zone, bodies on the ground, most wearing Chen's colors. Dominic's men moved like shadows, efficient and deadly. They were almost to the exit when Victor Chen appeared, his gun raised, his face twisted with rage. "You think you've won?" he snarled at Dominic. "You think killing me ends this? There are a dozen men ready to take my place, and they all know your weakness now. Then I'll kill them too." Dominic's voice was ice. "I'll kill everyone who even thinks about touching her." Chen's gun shifted toward Amara. Time slowed to a crawl. She saw his finger tighten on the trigger, saw Dominic reaching for his own weapon, knew neither of them would be fast enough. The shot came from behind them. Chen's body jerked, his gun clattering to the floor as he crumpled. One of Dominic's men lowered his weapon. "Target eliminated, sir." Dominic didn't even look at Chen's body. He just grabbed Amara's hand and pulled her toward the exit. They emerged into dawn light. Black SUVs surrounded the warehouse. Men in tactical gear moved with military precision, securing the perimeter. Dominic bundled Amara into the back of an SUV, climbing in beside her. Only when they were moving, speeding away from the warehouse, did he seem to breathe again. "I'm sorry," he said roughly. "This is my fault. My world touched you, and you almost died. I'm alive. This time." His hands clenched into fists. "But Chen was right. Now everyone knows you're my weakness. They'll come for you again. They'll keep coming. Then we deal with it." "No." He turned to face her. "You leave. You go back to Chicago, back to safety. I'll set you up with everything you need. Money, security, a fresh start. But you can't stay in Seoul." Amara's heart cracked. "What about Ethan?" "I'll find him another therapist." "Dominic, I can't watch you die." The words exploded out of him. "I can't sit in another hospital and watch someone I care about bleed out because of choices I made. I won't do it again." "So you're sending me away?" "I'm keeping you alive." He looked away, his jaw working. "Even if it destroys me." The compound was on high alert when they arrived. Armed guards everywhere, new security systems being installed. The staff moved with tense efficiency. Amara found Ethan in his room, his small body rigid with stress. The moment he saw her, he rushed forward, his arms wrapping around her waist with desperate strength. "You left," he said, his voice small and accusing. "You were gone, and Appa was scary, and everything was loud." Her heart shattered. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I didn't want to leave." "Are you leaving again?" He pulled back, his eyes, so like his father's, bright with unshed tears. "Everyone leaves." "Ethan," she knelt before him. "Sometimes grown-ups have to make really hard choices." "That means yes." His voice went flat. "You're leaving, like Mama left. Your mama didn't want to leave you, and I don't want to leave you either. But you will." It wasn't a question. He'd already accepted it as fact. Amara looked up and found Dominic standing in the doorway, his expression devastated. That night, after Ethan finally fell asleep, Amara packed her bags. Dominic had arranged a flight for the next morning. She'd found him in his study afterward, staring at nothing. "I can't do this," she said from the doorway. "I know. That's why you're leaving." "No, I can't leave." She moved into the room. "I can't abandon Ethan. I can't abandon you." "Amara, please." "I survived foster care. I survived poverty and betrayal and watching my mother die." She stood in front of his desk. I'm not running from you because your world is dangerous. I'm choosing to stay because that little boy needs me, and because I'm falling in love with his father." Dominic's head snapped up. "What?" "You heard me." Her voice shook. "I love you. I love Ethan. I love this broken, complicated family you're building, and I'm not leaving." He was around the desk before she could blink, his hands framing her face. "Do you understand what you're saying? The target this puts on you?" "I understand that I'd rather risk everything with you than be safe without you." "God," he kissed her, deep and desperate. "You're going to be the death of me. Or the making of you." She kissed him back. "Your choice. Stay." The word was rough against her lips. "Not just tonight. Stay forever." "Yes. Marry me." She pulled back, her eyes wide. "What?" "Marry me." His hands were shaking. "Not because I'm trying to control you, not because of the danger. Marry me because when I thought I'd lost you today, I wanted to burn the world down. Marry me because you make me believe I can be more than my father's legacy. Marry me because I love you, and I've never said those words to anyone except my son." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Yes. God, yes." They stood in his study, holding each other while Seoul glittered outside the windows. Two broken people who'd found something whole in each other, but storms were still gathering on the horizon. The attack came 2 weeks later, faster and more brutal than anyone expected. Amara was with Ethan in the music room when the alarms started shrieking. The boy's hands flew to his ears, his body going rigid with panic. "It's okay," Amara said, even as her own heart hammered. "We're okay." Then the door burst open. Not Dominic's men, others moving with military precision. She grabbed Ethan's hand and ran. They made it to the corridor before the armed men caught up. 3 of them, weapons raised. Amara pushed Ethan behind her, her body a shield. "Move," one of them ordered. "No." "We're not here for you. Give us the boy." "Over my dead body." The man's expression went cold. "That can be arranged." The gun raised. Time crystallized. Amara saw the finger tighten on the trigger, saw Ethan's terrified face behind her, made a choice that felt inevitable. She threw herself in front of the boy as the weapon fired. The bullet caught her shoulder. White-hot agony exploded through her body. She crumpled to the marble floor, her vision going dark at the edges. "Amara!" Ethan's scream pierced through the pain. More gunfire, shouting, the sound of bodies hitting the ground. Then Dominic's face appeared above her, his expression shattered with anguish. "No, no, 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 Amara, stay with me." "Ethan," she managed through the pain. "He's safe. You saved him." His hands pressed against her shoulder, trying to stop the bleeding. "But you're bleeding, there's so much blood." "I'm okay." She wasn't sure if that was true. "Don't lie to me." His voice cracked. "Don't you dare lie to me." Ethan's face appeared beside his father's, streaked with tears. "Don't die. Please don't die like Mama." "I'm not leaving you." She forced the words out. "I promised. Remember?" Her vision was fading, the world narrowing to pinpoints. She heard Dominic shouting for medics, felt his hands on her face, desperate and warm. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was his face, and the raw terror in his eyes. Amara woke to sterile whiteness and the rhythmic beeping of monitors. Her shoulder was on fire, her body heavy with medication. It took several seconds for her vision to focus, several more to remember where she was. Hospital. She'd been shot. "Ethan." "He's safe." Dominic's voice came from beside the bed. He looked like he'd aged 10 years. His eyes were bloodshot, his jaw dark with stubble, his expensive shirt wrinkled and stained with blood. Her blood. "How long?" she croaked. 4 days. Surgery, infection, complications. His hand found hers, gripping tight enough to hurt. "You coded twice. Your heart stopped twice, and I couldn't do anything except stand behind glass and watch them bring you back." "But they did bring me back." "They did." His voice broke. "But Amara, 4 days of not knowing if you'd wake up. 4 days of Ethan asking me every hour when you were coming home. 4 days of living in hell. She squeezed his hand. I'm here now. You almost weren't. He stood abruptly, pacing to the window. This is exactly what I was afraid of. My world touching you, hurting you, almost killing you. Dominic? The men who attacked the compound were hired by Marcus Wu. He's been trying to move into my territory for years. His hands clenched into fists. He thought taking Ethan would force me to negotiate. Instead, you took a bullet meant for my son. I'd do it again. He whirled to face her, his expression torn between awe and fury. That's the problem. You would do it again, and next time you might not survive. Next time I might lose you permanently. So what are you saying? You want me to leave after all? No. The word came out strangled. I'm saying I need to end this. All of it. Every dangerous connection, every criminal enterprise, every piece of my father's empire that puts you at risk. He moved back to her bedside. I'm going legitimate. Completely. I've already started divesting from the gray operations. Within 6 months, the Zhang name will be clean. Can you really do that? I have to, because I can't watch you bleed again. His hand cupped her face with infinite gentleness. You and Ethan are my family now, my only family, and I'll burn every bridge to my past if it means keeping you safe. The door burst open. Ethan stood there, his small chest heaving, his eyes wild. The moment he saw Amara awake, he rushed to the bed. You're alive! You're really alive! His hands grabbed hers, holding tight. I thought, everyone said you'd wake up, but you didn't wake up, and I thought you lied to me. I never lied to you, sweetheart. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I promised I wouldn't leave, and I meant it. You got shot because of me. No. She pulled him closer despite the pain in her shoulder. I got shot because some bad men made bad choices, but I chose to protect you because I love you. That's not your fault. But Mama died because of me. His voice went small. Appa says it's not true, but I know. She died when I was born. Dominic's face crumpled. Ethan, no. And now Amara almost died too. Tears streamed down the boy's face. Everyone who loves me gets hurt. Amara's heart shattered. She looked at Dominic, saw the same devastation reflected in his eyes. This was the fear he'd carried alone for 8 years, now manifesting in his son. Ethan, look at me. She waited until his eyes met hers. Your mama died because sometimes bodies don't work the way they should. It had nothing to do with you loving her, and I got hurt because I chose to keep you safe. That's what people who love you do. We protect each other. But what if next time? There won't be a next time. Dominic knelt beside the bed, his hand on his son's shoulder. I promise you, Ethan, I'm changing everything to make sure our family is safe. No more danger, no more violence, just us. Really? Hope flickered in the boy's eyes. Really? Dominic pulled both of them close, careful of Amara's injuries. We're going to build something new, something clean, a life your mother would be proud of. Recovery was slow and painful. Amara spent 2 weeks in the hospital, then another month confined to the compound while her shoulder healed. Dominic hired the best physical therapists money could buy. Ethan appointed himself her assistant, bringing her water and books and updates on his music practice. I learned a new song, he announced one afternoon, climbing carefully onto her bed. Want to hear it? Always. He hummed a melody she recognized, one of the pieces she'd been teaching him before the attack. His voice was soft but steady, gaining confidence with each note. When he finished, she applauded with her good arm. That was beautiful. Your pitch is perfect. I practiced every day you were sleeping. His expression turned serious. I wanted to be good at it when you woke up, so you'd want to stay. Oh, sweetheart. She pulled him close. I'm staying because I love you, not because of how well you play music, though you are excellent at it. Really? Really, really. He nestled against her side, careful not to jostle her shoulder. Appa says you're going to be my new mama officially, after you get married. How do you feel about that? He was quiet for a long moment. I think my first mama would like you. You're both kind, and you both love music. He looked up at her. Is it okay to have two mamas? One in heaven and one here? Amara's throat tightened. I think that's more than okay. I think that's beautiful. Good. He settled back against her. Because I already started calling you Mama in my head. She held him while he drifted off to sleep, this boy who'd cracked open her heart and whispered, I love you too, my brave boy. By the third month, Amara was cleared to resume limited work. Ethan's progress had accelerated beyond anyone's expectations. He spoke in full sentences now, expressing thoughts and feelings that had been locked inside for years. He'd started at a specialized school and was thriving, making friends with other neurodivergent children who understood him. He's extraordinary, his teachers reported. His musical aptitude is off the charts, and his emotional intelligence, once he learned to express it, is remarkable. Dominic listened to these reports with quiet wonder. You did this, he told Amara one evening. We did this, she corrected. You never gave up on him. That matters. I almost gave up 100 times. But you didn't. She took his hand. That's what counts. The wedding was planned for spring, a small ceremony in the compound gardens with just close family and friends. Michelle flew in from the institute, bringing news of the program's expansion. Your work with Ethan changed everything, she told Amara over tea. The board wants to develop a whole new wing focused on music therapy for neurodivergent children, with you as director, obviously. I can't leave Ethan. Who said anything about leaving? The wing would be here at the compound. Dominic's already funding it. Michelle grinned. Apparently he's very invested in music therapy now. Amara found Dominic in his study that evening. You're building a therapy wing? I'm building a legacy. He pulled her into his arms. Something that helps children like Ethan. Something that honors what you've given our family. You're going to make me cry. Good. You're beautiful when you cry. He kissed her softly. Though I prefer you happy. I am happy. And she was. Deliriously, impossibly happy in ways she'd never thought possible. But happiness in Dominic's world always came with a price. The threat arrived 3 days before the wedding. An envelope delivered to the compound gates, no return address. Inside was a single photograph. Amara at the hospital during her last checkup, the crosshairs of a rifle scope superimposed over her chest. The message on the back was simple. Cancel the wedding or she dies. Dominic's face went white, then red with fury. Marcus Wu. He survived the raid somehow, went underground. Now he's making a final play. We don't negotiate with terrorists, Amara said, her voice steadier than she felt. This isn't a negotiation. This is a death threat. Then we deal with it. She took the photo from his hands. But we don't cancel our wedding. We don't let him win. Amara, he has a sniper. And you have an army of security. We make this place a fortress. We move the ceremony indoors. We take precautions. She grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. But we don't let fear control us. We don't let him take this from us. Dominic stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Then slowly, he smiled. You're terrifying, you know that? I learned from the best. The next 72 hours were a frenzy of security preparations. Every entrance to the compound was reinforced. Counter-sniper teams positioned on rooftops. Guest lists verified 3 times. The ceremony location moved to an interior ballroom with reinforced walls. Ethan watched the preparations with wide eyes. Is someone trying to hurt Mama again? Someone is trying, Dominic told him honestly. But we won't let them succeed. I promise you. I could help protect her. The boy's expression was serious. I'm good at noticing things. You are. Dominic knelt before his son. And the best way you can help is by staying safe yourself. Can you do that? Only if you promise to keep Mama safe. I promise. The wedding day arrived bright and clear. Amara stood in her room, staring at her reflection in the simple ivory dress she'd chosen. Her shoulder still ached sometimes, a reminder of how fragile life could be. But today, surrounded by armed guards and bulletproof glass, She'd never felt more certain of her choice. Michelle helped with her hair, weaving flowers through the curls. "You sure about this? Marrying into a crime family?" "Former crime family. And yes." Amara met her friend's eyes in the mirror. "I've never been more sure of anything." The ceremony was intimate and perfect. Ethan stood beside his father as best man, his small face serious with responsibility. When Dominic lifted Amara's veil and saw tears streaming down her face, his own eyes grew bright. "I love you," he whispered, "for making me believe in second chances." "I love you," she answered, "for giving me a home." They kissed as husband and wife, and Ethan whooped with joy. "She's officially my mama now. Forever." The reception was winding down when the lights cut out. Emergency protocols kicked in immediately. Red emergency lighting flooded the ballroom. Security personnel moved with practiced efficiency, herding guests toward safe rooms. "Amara, Ethan, with me now." Dominic's voice was calm but urgent. His hand found hers in the dim light. They were halfway to the secure corridor when the window exploded inward. Glass rained down like deadly snow. Amara threw herself over Ethan instinctively, shielding him with her body. Pain sliced through her as shards bit into her back. "Contact! Shooter on the east roof!" someone shouted. More gunfire. The distinctive crack of return fire from Dominic's security team. Chaos and screaming and the acrid smell of gunpowder. Dominic covered both of them with his body, protecting his family with his own mass. "Stay down. Don't move." The firefight lasted less than 2 minutes. Then silence, broken only by Ethan's whimpering and Amara's harsh breathing. "Clear," someone called. "Shooter neutralized." Dominic pulled back, his hands running over both of them frantically. "Are you hurt? Either of you?" "I'm okay," Ethan said shakily. "Amara?" Dominic's hand came away from her back, stained with blood. "You're bleeding." "Just cuts. I'm fine." She wasn't fine. Her back was on fire where glass had embedded in her skin, but Ethan was safe, and that was all that mattered. The compound's medical staff descended on them. They found 13 glass fragments in Amara's back, none deep enough to cause permanent damage, but all painful enough to make her grit her teeth during extraction. Dominic sat beside her through every moment, his hand gripping hers. "This is it. We're leaving Seoul. Tonight." "What?" "I can't keep you safe here. Marcus Wu is dead. They confirmed the kill. But there will be others. There are always others." His voice was ragged. "I'm getting you and Ethan out. Somewhere remote. Somewhere we can disappear." "Dominic, we can't just run. Watch me." His eyes burned into hers. "You've been hurt twice because of me. Twice you've bled because of my past. I won't risk a third time." "So we abandon everything? The therapy wing? Ethan's school? Your business?" "I'll rebuild somewhere else. I'll start over completely." He cupped her face. "But I won't lose you. I can't." Amara saw the desperation in his eyes, the fear that had been eating at him since the day they met. This was a man who'd lost his wife, who'd watched his son retreat from the world, who'd finally found happiness only to have it threatened again and again. "Okay," she said softly. "Okay. We'll go." Within 48 hours they were gone. Private jet to a location Dominic wouldn't name until they were airborne. Ethan sat between them, subdued but not traumatized, his resilience a testament to how far he'd come. "Where are we going?" he asked. "Somewhere safe," Dominic said. "Somewhere we can be a normal family." "We're not normal, though." Ethan looked between his parents. "We're different. Is that okay?" "That's more than okay," Amara assured him. "That's perfect." They landed in New Zealand 20 hours later. Dominic had purchased a property on the South Island, hundreds of acres of pristine wilderness, with a single modern house perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. No neighbors for miles, no threats, no past, just them. The first month was an adjustment. Ethan struggled with the change, his routines disrupted, his familiar environment gone. But slowly, he adapted. He explored tide pools and learned about native birds. He discovered he loved hiking and could identify stars without the light pollution of cities. Amara established a home therapy room and continued working with him while also connecting via telehealth with the program in Seoul. The therapy wing opened without her physical presence, but she consulted remotely, training new therapists in her methods. Dominic transformed before her eyes. The hard edges softened. The constant vigilance relaxed. He learned to cook, took up woodworking, spent hours playing with Ethan in ways he'd never allowed himself before. "I like it here," Ethan announced one evening, cuddled between his parents on the couch. "It's quiet. My brain likes quiet." "Mine too," Dominic admitted. He looked at Amara. "Thank you." "For what?" "For saving us. Both of us." His arm tightened around her. "I spent so many years thinking strength meant control, meant dominance. You taught me that real strength is letting yourself be vulnerable enough to love. You taught yourself that. I just held up a mirror." 6 months after arriving in New Zealand, Amara missed her period. She took 3 tests, just to be sure. All positive. She found Dominic in his workshop, building a bookshelf for Ethan's growing collection. "We need to talk." He set down his tools immediately, his expression shifting to concern. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right, actually." She took his hand and placed it on her stomach. "We're having a baby." He froze, his dark eyes going wide. We're pregnant. About 8 weeks. A baby." He sank onto his workbench, pulling her between his legs. "We're having a baby." His hands framed her face. "How do you feel?" "Terrified? Excited? Happy?" She smiled. "How do you feel?" "Like my life just became perfect." He kissed her softly. "Like I've been given more than I deserve." "You deserve everything," she corrected. "We all do." They told Ethan that evening. He processed the information in his characteristic way, going quiet for several minutes before responding. "Will the baby like music?" he finally asked. "Probably. Music is in our family." "Good, I'll teach them." His expression turned serious. "I'll be a good big brother. I'll protect them like you protected me." Amara pulled him into a hug. "I know you will, sweetheart." The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Dominic was attentive to the point of being overbearing, insisting on accompanying her to every doctor's appointment, monitoring her diet, ensuring she rested enough. "You're hovering," she told him one afternoon. "I'm being protective." "You're being paranoid." "Can you blame me?" His hand covered the growing swell of her belly. "Last time I wasn't there, and Caroline died. I won't make that mistake again. I'm not Caroline, and this isn't Seoul. We're safe here." "I know." But the fear never quite left his eyes. Their daughter was born on a spring morning, arriving 3 weeks early with a lusty cry that announced her displeasure at being removed from her warm cocoon. They named her Lily, after the flowers that bloomed around their New Zealand home. Ethan was enchanted. He sat beside her crib for hours, humming melodies and telling her about constellations and ocean currents. "She smiled at me," he reported breathlessly. "A real smile. She knows I'm her brother." Dominic watched his children with an expression of wonder that still made Amara's heart ache. "I never thought I'd have this," he whispered one night, Lily sleeping against his chest. "A family. Real peace. A life worth living." "You built it," Amara said. "You chose to leave everything behind and build something better." "We built it together." He reached for her hand. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." 3 years passed in their New Zealand sanctuary. Lily grew into a fearless toddler who climbed everything and had her father wrapped around her tiny finger. Ethan started high school, excelling in music and mathematics, his autism no longer something that held him back, but simply part of who he was. Amara expanded her telehealth practice, working with families around the world. She published research on rhythm therapy that revolutionized how neurodivergent children were treated. She built a legacy from their clifftop home, and Dominic completed his transformation from crime lord to philanthropist. The Zhang Foundation, run remotely, funded programs for at-risk children across Asia. He'd turned his fortune into something that healed rather than hurt. But the past never completely disappeared. The letter arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, delivered by courier to their remote property. Dominic opened it with hands that had started to shake the moment he saw the Seoul postmark. Inside was a newspaper clipping, a photograph of Marcus Wu's brother, recently released from prison. The headline read, "Crime Lord's Brother Vows Revenge." Below it, 3 words scrawled in red ink. "I found you." Dominic's face went white. He looked out the window at Ethan teaching Lily how to skip stones on the beach, at Amara hanging laundry in the garden. Everything perfect. Everything fragile. "No," he whispered, "not again." But even as he said it, he saw the black SUVs coming up their private road. 4 of them, moving with purpose. He hit the panic button hidden in his study. Alarms shrieked through the house. Amara's head snapped up from the garden, her eyes finding his through the window. The terror in her expression mirrored his own. Time seemed to slow as Dominic ran toward his family, toward the beach, toward everything that mattered. But the SUVs were faster, closer. Armed men poured out, weapons raised. He saw Ethan grab Lily, saw them both turn toward the house, saw Amara running to meet them, to shield them with her body the way she always did. "Get down!" Dominic roared. The first shot echoed across the cliffs. Everything shattered. Amara threw herself over the children as bullets tore through the air. Dominic covered all 3 of them with his body, taking hits meant for them. Pain exploded through his shoulder, his leg, but he didn't move, wouldn't move, would die before he let anything happen to his family. Return fire came from unexpected directions. Hidden security he'd installed and never told Amara about. Countermeasures he'd prayed they'd never need. His team had been here all along, watching from the shadows. The firefight was brutal and brief. When the smoke cleared, all 4 SUVs were disabled. The attackers were dead or fleeing, and Dominic was bleeding onto the sand, his vision going dark. "Dominic!" Amara's face appeared above him. "Stay with me. Don't you dare leave us." "Are they safe?" he managed. "The kids?" "They're safe. We're all safe." Tears streamed down her face. "Because of you." "Good." His eyes closed. "That's all that matters." He woke in a hospital 3 days later. Amara was asleep in the chair beside his bed, her hand wrapped around his. Lily was curled in her lap. Ethan sat on the floor, headphones on, listening to music. "Hey," Dominic croaked. 3 heads snapped toward him. Ethan lunged forward, grabbing his hand. "You're awake. You're really awake." "I promised I'd keep you safe, didn't I?" Dominic's voice was rough. "Can't do that if I'm dead." "Not funny, Appa." But Ethan was smiling through his tears. Amara leaned forward, kissing him softly. "You took 4 bullets. Worth it. Not to me." Her hand cupped his face. "Don't ever scare me like that again." "I'll try." He looked at his children, at his wife, at everything he'd nearly lost. "What happened to Wu's brother?" "Dead. Your security team made sure of it." Amara's expression hardened. "They also found his entire network and dismantled it, permanently. So it's over." "It's over." She squeezed his hand. "Really over this time. No more threats. No more running. Just us." Recovery took months. Dominic's injuries were severe enough to require extensive physical therapy, but he healed surrounded by love, by his son reading him scientific articles, by his daughter bringing him flowers, by his wife refusing to let him sink into darkness. 1 year after the attack, they stood on their cliff overlooking the ocean. Ethan was 16 now, tall and lanky, already talking about universities. Lily was 4, wild and joyful, chasing seabirds across the sand. And between them, Amara was pregnant again, her belly round with their second daughter. "We made it," Dominic said quietly. "Through everything, we made it." "We did," Amara leaned against him. "And we'll keep making it. Because that's what families do." "I love you." He turned her to face him. "For seeing something worth saving in a broken man, for giving me a reason to become better, for this life. I love you for fighting for us, for choosing us over everything else." she smiled, "for being brave enough to let yourself be happy." They kissed as the sun set over the Pacific, two people who'd found each other in the darkness and built something luminous. Behind them, their children played in the surf, their laughter carried on the wind. The past would always be there, scars they'd carry forever. But the future stretched out before them, bright and boundless and theirs to create. Amara had walked into a ballroom 3 years ago and knelt before a frightened boy. That single act of kindness had set everything in motion, had saved Ethan, had transformed Dominic, had built a family from broken pieces. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop and see someone, really see them. And sometimes when you're brave enough to reach out your hand, someone reaches back. And everything changes.